Feminism is a group of women who wanted to fight for rights, equal opportunities, and a fair outlook in society. We in closing are clear in defending that women should have a say when it comes to choosing their spouses, and moreover we want to end the culture of marriage agreements because it is the exact epitome that women can be readily given to some rich person and are painted only as house helpers even in the modern society. That's why there are two issues in this debate. The first issue would be talking about the effects of Islamic marriage on women, and the second issue would be talking about where is the feminist movement more of hope. Now let's move on to the first issue. Opening government talks about in this issue that, well, there are stereotypes of house that women are just housewives, that they just care for babies, they're just cooking, and they're just cleaning. Where when and they also told us in their second analysis that, well, rights are trampled because women are just being are just being negotiated upon by parents, and where women don't really have a choice for their spouses. This is where closing government extended to the debate when we're talking about the root effects on what are on a macro perspective, laying down the harms and explaining why this is exactly important when we talk about the more burdens that the modern society woman can experience. And moreover, we say, Mrs. Speaker, when we talk about laying down the foundation of the feminist movement, which is not exactly the kind of paradigm that Islamic culture is present on. And opening opposition was actually conceding to us that, well, they agree that oppression on women in marriage do happen when we talk about fixed marriage. That's why when they talked about the running away argument, we say, Mr. Speaker, that on that level alone, they were already giving us a hint that, number one, women do get oppressed in fixed marriages, and number two, we say, Mr. Speaker, there's something wrong with that culture, which is the exact argument of opening opposition. So thank you, opening opposition, for that. But let's actually respond to the clash point made by opening opposition, because this is the only clash point that they talked about. That we should follow the culture because it quote unquote benefits them, which is something that we haven't heard from government side. Let's assume that there were benefits presented. They talked to us about benefits. That, well, these benefits are worth dying for, these benefits are worth dying for, and on the same breath, they tell us that women can just run away because they have free will. That's something, those already on the onset are two contradicting values which we don't understand from side opposition. That's why you should penalize them on that. But you say, Mr. Speaker, let's still assume that running away was a benefit. We say, Mr. Speaker, running away is already painted in Islamic culture as immoral. That once you run away, you already are not you don't have access to the heaven or whatever they're talking about in the Islamic region. That's why I believe, Mr. Speaker, that on that level alone, running away is painted immoral. So therefore, these women don't really have a choice but to take the marriage, because either they choose to stay on hell or they choose to stay on heaven, which is more better. And for them, that's already a large disincentive, especially when we're talking about Islamic conservatists, Mr. Speaker. That's why I believe on closing government, which was exclusively argued to you, why we don't need to consider, why we have to change this culture, especially when we're talking about the modernizing society, where the modernizing society allows choices for women to choose their spouses. And moreover, we say, Mr. Speaker, allowing women to have that say, to regret that kind of deal, negotiating marriage. And we say, Mr. Speaker, that when we laid to you down the harms of why the more burden that these women can experience when this culture isn't removed is something that's actually against the feminist principle, which will be more talked about on the second issue. This is where closing opposition exactly argued to you that, well, the benefits of reaping from a rich guy can be exposed and can be reaped upon, and these parents can agree that, well, we're giving our child to some good man or whatnot. We say on that level alone, Mr. Speaker, we say women are oppressed because even if that guy is rich, even if that person is successful in life, we say, Mr. Speaker, that women don't really get to choose what they want. Because if they really want a rich guy to begin with, Mr. Speaker, then they can just seek him individually with their own opinion and with their own choices, but not necessarily having to negotiate them and being stuck with them with their whole life. That's why I believe, Mr. Speaker, that on the level of Islamic marriage's effects on women, there's already oppression present. So when we're talking about the versions of truth, we say, Mr. Speaker, government tells you the truth that Islamic marriages are Islamic marriages oppress women on the level of stereotypes and on the level of rights, Mr. Speaker. That's why I believe that on the standards that we give you from side closing government, we say Islamic marriages doesn't fit in the feminist standard. Let's move on to the second issue, where we talked about where is the feminist movement more uphold. This is where opening government tells us that, well, if they can choose, if we remove this kind of marriage, then they can choose for themselves. Where open opposition actually says just like the say, but only they argue that, well, you have rights, that's why you don't need to remove the marriage, but you can just run away, which is something that I already have rebutted on. This is where closing government exactly argued to you the standards of when is feminism achieved. When we talked about fairness, meaning that women have equal opportunities as men, that women are outlooked as just the same as men or as equal in achievements, Mr. Speaker. This is where closing opposition argued to us that, well, it doesn't really oppress, marriage doesn't really oppress women. Rather, there's a consultation, that there's the involvement of the whole family when we're talking about dealings, and they do this because the man is capable of support. We say, Mr. Speaker, that on that level alone, are you willing to give your daughter to some, or is the daughter actually, does the daughter really want to be given to some kind of rich guy? What if he doesn't like what if he doesn't like the rich guy, or maybe the rich guy is just so rude, or maybe the rich guy is this and that? We say, Mr. Speaker, that the perspective of the women is not taken into consideration, and we say, Mr. Speaker, this consultation period is actually questionable because there are two levels of question for this consultation period. Number one, when we're talking about question of involvement, is the daughter really involved in that kind of consultation? Because as far as I'm concerned, these are the parents talking to each other even before, without actually the consent of the daughter, because if they did have the consent of the daughter, then the daughter would automatically not agree, because we see, Mr. Speaker, that fixed marriages enforce these women into receiving that kind of commitment with the person that their family is actually close to. When we say, Mr. Speaker, that parents are offered dowries meaning offerings such as money, calf, and what other kinds of gifts, Mr. Speaker, which is something that the daughter can be bribed about, that the daughter can be bought using dowries. We say, Mr. Speaker, that's not really the essence of feminism as we provide to you in closing government. Because the closing government told you that feminism is about choices, whether or not these women really want to enter themselves into such kinds of culture, or whether or not these women want to do their choices. What their culture actually does is actually just is denying of those women who actually want to get free from these constraints of these cultures. We say, Mr. Speaker, that's the exact harm that we see from fixed marriages at the end of it all. Second, Mr. Speaker, closing opposition argues also in this issue that, well, we can actually change the religion. There are two levels of rebuttals. Number one, we talked about once they're inside of the marriage, they cannot actually change the religion. Because once inside their marriage, how will they be able to change the religion? Because they're already committed to that person and it's already too late. That's why I believe, Mr. Speaker, that culture exactly paints to us that women are oppressed inside this kind of marriage. Moreover, the second rebuttal is when we talk to you about how it's already a stereotype that if they're immoral, if they back down from this kind of tradition, and these are not radical women who just want to escape from their marriage. We say, Mr. Speaker, that on that level alone, we say there's already an oppression present, and we say, Mr. Speaker, that we have to take care of these radical women because these women are not radical. That's why we have to take care of them at the end of it all. And we say, Mr. Speaker, closing government wins this debate. Thank you.